Jack Rydell had never felt more out of place in his life. The halls of the Intergalactic Cadet Academy were alive with alien chatter, strange scents, and glowing panels flashing alien codes. He adjusted the straps of his uniform nervously. The academy was supposed to be the most prestigious in the galaxy, a place where only the best of all species could train to become elite officers, and he, a human barely 17, was one of them. Humans were rare here, and not many believed they belonged. The cafeteria, a massive hall with tables stretching in every direction, was crowded with cadets of all shapes and sizes. Some had multiple arms, some floated slightly above the floor, and others had skin that shimmered in colors Jack had no names for. The air smelled faintly of roasted protein cubes and synthetic fruit, though the aroma was alien to Jack. He carried his tray carefully, balancing a steaming portion of what looked like noodles on one side and a small protein patty on the other. Jack had barely found a place to sit when a group of 5 cadets approached. They were massive, at least twice his size, with thick exoskeletons that glinted under the cafeteria lights. Their eyes glowed faintly, an indication of their excitement, or perhaps their cruelty. They were notorious in the academy for bullying any cadet they saw as weak, and right now, that weak cadet was him. "Look at this little human," one of them sneered, his voice like grinding metal. "Carrying food like he's some kind of servant." The others laughed, their footsteps heavy on the floor. Jack kept his gaze forward, pretending not to notice them. He knew any sudden reaction could make things worse. He had learned early on that humans had to rely on speed and cleverness rather than brute strength in alien environments. His mind raced, noting the angles of attack, their posture, and the way they moved. Without warning, the tallest of the group reached out and swiped his tray, sending noodles and the protein patty flying across the floor. Jack's lunch splattered onto the table and onto a few unlucky cadets nearby. The cafeteria erupted into alien laughter. "You humans are so fragile," another hissed, kicking at the mess as if it were some kind of joke. Jack felt a flush of heat in his cheeks. For a moment, he thought about lashing out, but he stopped himself. He knew he couldn't fight them physically, not yet. Instead, he let his hands clench into fists, hiding the tension. His heart beat faster, but his mind stayed sharp. He had always been underestimated, and he had learned that underestimation could be a weapon if used correctly. Other cadets were watching. Some were too scared to intervene, while others looked impressed at Jack's calm demeanor. Even in this moment of humiliation, he noticed details about the bullies, the way their joints locked when they moved, how their balance shifted when they leaned forward, and how their glowing eyes flickered slightly when they were excited or angry. These little observations would matter later. Jack picked up the remnants of his lunch silently, refusing to show any more emotion. As he cleaned up, the bullies strutted away, satisfied with their prank. But Jack wasn't angry in the way they expected. Instead, he felt a quiet determination. They had made a mistake. They had assumed that because he was human, he was weak. Later that day, during the Academy's standard combat exercises, Jack's unique abilities became apparent. Humans were smaller and weaker compared to many alien species, but they were fast, adaptable, and clever. Jack moved with a speed that surprised his instructors. He could dodge, twist, and flip in ways most aliens couldn't. While the bullies bragged and flexed their muscles, Jack practiced silently, sharpening his reflexes and analyzing strategies in his head. During a break, a tall alien instructor with translucent wings approached him. "You handle yourself well," she said in a melodic tone. "You study your opponents." "You think ahead. That is more valuable than raw strength." She smiled briefly, her wings shimmering in the sunlight that streamed through the Academy's glass panels. Jack nodded, taking her words to heart. He knew he couldn't rely on being physically strong, at least not yet, but his mind could outmatch anyone who underestimated him. Humans had always survived against odds, and he would survive here too. The next morning, as he entered the cafeteria again, the same group of bullies spotted him immediately. They smirked, nudging each other, clearly eager to repeat their joke. Jack's stomach tightened, but he did not flinch. Instead, he carried his tray like a weapon, eyes locked on his food. Pretending he hadn't noticed them, they approached, slow and deliberate. Jack observed each movement carefully, noticing patterns. One of them, the largest, always relied on overextending his arm when he reached for something. Another used his weight to intimidate rather than to strike. Jack catalogued each weakness silently. "Hey, human," the tallest hissed. "We didn't finish our entertainment yesterday. Maybe we should." Jack's mind worked faster than ever. He weighed the options: flee, fight, or wait. He decided to wait. Patience could be more powerful than strength. He set his tray down and sat quietly, deliberately placing himself in a position where he could control the space around him. The bullies lunged, thinking they had him cornered. But Jack was ready. With a subtle shift, he avoided their grasp, stepping aside in a way that used their momentum against them. A chain reaction of small, calculated moves sent them stumbling slightly, enough to draw attention from nearby cadets. Jack's small human form seemed to move impossibly fast, almost like he anticipated every motion before it happened. The cafeteria erupted into chaos, not because Jack struck them, but because he outmaneuvered them completely, leaving the bullies off balance and embarrassed. Though no one was hurt, the aliens were furious. Their pride was damaged, and that was sometimes worse than any physical harm. Jack smiled faintly to himself. The humiliation he had suffered earlier had given him insight. In just a short span, he had turned the tables using speed, intellect, and observation, the traits humans were often underestimated for. By the end of the day, whispers spread throughout the academy. Cadets who had once dismissed humans as weak began to look at Jack differently. They had seen the tiniest hint of human potential, and it was enough to shake the arrogance of the alien elite. As Jack walked back to his dormitory that evening, his tray empty, he felt a strange sense of satisfaction. He had been tested and had passed. More importantly, he had learned something critical. Humans did not need to be the strongest to survive. They needed to be smart, quick, and fearless. That lesson, he knew, would carry him further than brute strength ever could. In the quiet of his dorm, he prepared for the days ahead. He reviewed the observations he had made, noting the movements, weaknesses, and tendencies of the bullies. He knew that if they tried again, he would be ready, not just to defend himself, but to assert human dominance in a way no alien could ignore. And as he drifted off to sleep, he imagined the next encounter. It wouldn't be about lunch or humiliation. It would be about proving that humans could be more than anyone expected, even in a galaxy full of stronger, bigger, and more intimidating beings. Jack Rydell had learned his first lesson at the Intergalactic Cadet Academy. Being underestimated was a gift. And humans, he realized, had a way of turning that gift into something unstoppable. The next morning, Jack Rydell woke before sunrise. The dormitory was quiet, the soft hum of the Academy's energy fields the only sound. While other cadets slept, Jack had already begun his preparation. Yesterday's cafeteria incident had been a test. A minor one, but enough to prove that humans were not as weak as the aliens believed. Today, he planned to observe, analyze, and strategize. He dressed quickly, securing his uniform and strapping on light protective gear. The human body was smaller and less dense than most alien species. But Jack had learned that size did not determine effectiveness. Speed, intelligence, and adaptability were humans' greatest weapons. In the training hall, cadets were already gathering. The 5 bullies from the cafeteria were there too, their massive forms dominating the space. They laughed among themselves, clearly believing the previous day had been nothing more than a fluke. Their confidence irritated Jack, but he remained calm. He knew arrogance was a weakness he could exploit. Jack moved to the observation deck, a narrow platform above the training area. From here, he could watch without being noticed. The bullies began their usual warm-up routines, heavy stretches and exaggerated displays of strength. Jack's eyes flicked from one cadet to another. The tallest one, Gornek, relied on overextending his arms, which often left him off balance. The second, Varl, had a habit of shifting his weight back too slowly when dodging, exposing a slow reaction time. The others had similar, predictable patterns. Jack scribbled notes in a small data pad, recording movements, reaction times, and tendencies. Humans had a natural ability to notice small details, and Jack intended to use it to full advantage. He didn't need to be stronger. He only needed to know how to manipulate momentum, timing, and positioning to neutralize 5 opponents at once. Between observations, Jack took mental notes of the environmental advantages around the training hall. Low gravity zones, magnetic panels, and zero-friction floors could all be used strategically. Humans had an intuitive understanding of improvisation, and Jack planned to make the space work in his favor. When the instructor arrived, Jack noticed another advantage. The instructor's eyes scanned the group with laser-like precision, noting weaknesses, strengths, and potential strategies. Jack realized that if he could anticipate not only the bullies' movements, but also the instructor's expectations, he could manipulate outcomes without seeming aggressive. After the warm-ups, the bullies paired off for combat drills. They moved with brute strength, swinging and lunging with power that most cadets would find overwhelming. But Jack's keen observation skills picked up subtle tells. Slight hesitation before a lunge, a shift in balance that predicted direction, and micro-expressions in their glowing eyes that hinted at intention. Every detail was a piece of a puzzle, and Jack began assembling a plan. During a break, Jack's friend Lyra, a sleek alien with shimmering silver skin and long, flexible limbs, floated over. "Jack, you're still studying them?" she asked, her voice melodic but curious. Jack nodded. "I need to understand how they move."
"I can't fight them blindly. If I react without knowing, I'll fail."
Lyra tilted her head. "You humans are strange. You think too much."
Jack smiled faintly. "Maybe, but thinking keeps me alive."
The lunch period came, and Jack was careful to avoid the cafeteria. He knew the bullies would be waiting for him, and he didn't want another public display yet. Instead, he sat in the Academy's observation lounge, reviewing the notes he had taken. He ran simulations in his mind, imagining the different ways the bullies could attack and how he could respond. He considered speed, leverage, and timing, creating a strategy for each individual. By mid-afternoon, Jack's plan had become detailed. He had broken down every cadet's strengths and weaknesses. Gornak's overconfidence could be turned against him. Varl's slow reactions made him vulnerable to feints. Each of the others had predictable patterns that could be exploited. The human brain, Jack realized, was a weapon in itself, and he intended to wield it fully. The next day, a practical exercise was announced. The cadets would face off in small groups in the simulation arena, a room designed to replicate zero-gravity combat with various obstacles. Jack's heart raced, but he remained outwardly calm. This was the moment to put theory into practice. As the bullies entered the arena, they laughed loudly. They believed they were untouchable, and Jack knew that underestimation was key. He positioned himself in the center, quietly calculating angles, trajectories, and potential escape routes. The arena was equipped with floating platforms, low gravity zones, and kinetic walls. Jack memorized the layout instantly, knowing that environmental awareness could turn the tide. The simulation began. The bullies lunged as expected, each moving according to the patterns Jack had observed. With a sudden leap, he dodged Gornak's overextended strike, letting the larger cadet's momentum carry him into a soft barrier. Varl attempted to flank him, but Jack anticipated the movement, pivoting and using a magnetic panel to alter his trajectory, leaving Varl off balance. Jack moved like a shadow, small and precise, using timing and environmental features to stay several steps ahead. He tapped, pushed, and redirected the bullies' own energy against them. In the zero-gravity zones, he spun effortlessly, using their weight and momentum to guide them into containment zones. Each move was calculated, requiring split-second decisions and precise execution. By the end of the exercise, all 5 bullies were in the simulation's recovery pods, stunned but unharmed. The instructor's voice echoed over the arena's speakers. "Remarkable," she said. "Human reflexes and strategic thinking are far beyond what I anticipated." "Well done." Other cadets stared in awe. Whispers spread quickly. The human cadet had not only survived but had outmaneuvered 5 of the Academy's top bullies. Jack felt no satisfaction in humiliation. He was focused on the lesson. Speed, intelligence, observation, and adaptability had won the day. The bullies themselves were silent, simmering with disbelief. They had expected brute force to dominate, but Jack had shown them that humans use different tools: the mind, agility, and cleverness. Their pride was wounded, and for the first time they saw humans in a new light, not as weak or fragile, but as dangerous in ways they could not anticipate. That evening, in the dormitory, Jack reviewed his observations once more. He thought about the next time they might challenge him. He realized that preparation, awareness, and anticipation were his greatest assets. Humans might not be physically superior, but they could outthink and outmaneuver anyone if they paid attention. Lyra floated over again, curiosity sparkling in her eyes.
"You really are strange, Jack."
"You think of everything." Jack shrugged, a faint smile on his lips. "I have to. If I don't, I'll end up on the floor like yesterday's lunch." Lyra laughed softly, shaking her head. "I think you're teaching the Academy a lesson." Jack didn't respond. He focused on his notes, on the simulations in his mind, and on the path ahead. The bullies might return, but next time he would be ready, not just to defend himself, but to assert that humans were not to be underestimated. Over the following days, Jack continued his quiet preparation. He studied alien biology, noting muscle weaknesses and reflex patterns. He analyzed physics, particularly in low-gravity and zero-gravity environments, finding ways to amplify his speed and agility. He practiced reflex exercises that honed his reaction time to levels the aliens could barely comprehend. By the end of the week, Jack was ready. Not with anger or vengeance, but with precision, intelligence, and confidence. He had transformed humiliation into preparation. The human cadet who had once been mocked for spilling lunch was now a force that even the most arrogant alien cadets had to respect. Jack smiled to himself as he gazed out of the dormitory window at the Academy's sprawling grounds. The galaxy was full of stronger, bigger, and seemingly more powerful beings, but humans had something the aliens often overlooked: adaptability, cunning, and a mind that could turn the tide in an instant. The next encounter would come soon, and Jack would be ready. He didn't need brute force. He had something far better: a human mind capable of observing, learning, and acting faster than anyone expected. And when the time came, he would prove that humans could not only survive in this alien world, they could dominate it. The day of the arena exercise arrived, and the Intergalactic Cadet Academy buzzed with excitement. The news of Jack Rydell's observations and clever maneuvers had already spread through the cadet ranks. Some were curious to see what the human cadet could do, while others were skeptical, unwilling to believe that a human could outmatch 5 top bullies at once. Jack entered the simulation arena calmly, his small frame almost lost among the towering aliens. The arena was vast, with a low-gravity section in the center, floating platforms scattered like stepping stones, and kinetic barriers that could shift positions unpredictably. Every detail of the environment was perfect for testing both strength and strategy. The 5 bullies, Gornak, Varl, Zirek, Lomak, and Fren, were already there. They had trained since the last incident, confident they would prove their superiority. Their muscles flexed, their eyes glowed with intensity, and their multiple arms twitched in anticipation. To them, the human cadet was just a small, weak opponent, a target for display. Jack didn't move immediately. He stood at the edge of a floating platform, scanning the arena, and memorizing the positions of every obstacle. He observed the bullies, noticing subtle tells that confirmed his earlier notes. Gornak overextended his arms when readying an attack. Varl's reflexes were slower than they thought, and Zirek always shifted his weight forward before lunging. Each of them had predictable flaws, and Jack's mind had already mapped out the sequence he would use to exploit them. The instructor's voice echoed through the arena. This is a group challenge. Avoid causing permanent harm, but use your skills to disable your opponents until they are immobilized. Human cadet, you may begin. Jack's heart beat steadily, but he remained calm on the outside. For the first time, he felt the thrill of anticipation. Every strategy he had practiced over the past week would come to life. The bullies charged simultaneously, their massive forms moving faster than most cadets could keep up with. But Jack had anticipated this. He sidestepped Gornak's swinging arm and tapped a nearby kinetic panel. The panel shifted slightly, changing the trajectory of the floor beneath Gornak's feet. The larger alien stumbled, barely catching himself, while Jack used the momentum to vault onto a floating platform. Var lunged next, aiming for Jack's side. Jack ducked, rolling over the platform's edge and using the low-gravity zone to perform a spin that would have seemed impossible in normal gravity. Varl's momentum carried him past Jack, where he collided softly with a containment barrier. Jack stayed balanced, light on his feet, calculating every movement in real time. Zirek attempted a high strike, extending his multiple arms to catch Jack off guard. But Jack anticipated the motion. With a quick pivot and a gentle push, he redirected Zirek's energy into a magnetic net that briefly immobilized him. Jack didn't strike with force. He simply used their strength and momentum against them, a principle he had learned from observation. Lomac and Fryn moved together, trying to corner him. Their size made them formidable, but their movements were predictable. Jack slid between them, hopping from platform to platform, letting their combined momentum carry them slightly off balance. Lomac reached for him and missed entirely, while Fryn's arm grazed Jack's shoulder. Jack barely noticed, already calculating the next sequence. Within seconds, Jack had positioned himself perfectly. He used a low-gravity zone to gain extra speed and leverage. He tapped Lomac's leg, redirecting his momentum into a soft collision with the barrier. Fryn attempted to intercept Jack's path, but Jack spun, using Fryn's forward momentum to send him sliding past a platform edge. The human cadet moved like a blur, each motion precise and controlled. Gornak tried to recover from his stumble, swinging wildly in frustration. Jack anticipated the overextension and stepped aside, guiding Gornak into a soft containment field. Varl struggled to regain balance but was already caught in a magnetic net from earlier. Zirek was still immobilized, and Lomac and Fryn were temporarily disoriented. In less than 10 seconds, all 5 bullies were effectively neutralized, resting in the arena's recovery pods. The arena fell silent. Even the instructor paused, impressed by the speed and efficiency of Jack's movements. "Remarkable," she said finally. "Human reflexes, strategy, and observation. Combined, they surpass expectation. Well done, Cadet Riddell." Other cadets stared in awe. Some whispered to each other, eyes wide. The human cadet, once seen as fragile and insignificant, had demonstrated the full potential of human ingenuity and adaptability. They had underestimated him, as they had underestimated humans for centuries, and now they realized just how wrong they had been. The bullies themselves were still in the pods, shaken and humiliated. They had not been harmed physically, but the lesson was clear. Humans were not weak, and underestimation could be dangerous. Gornak's pride was bruised, and Varl's confidence shattered. For the first time, they recognized the human advantage. The mind could be more powerful than brute strength. Jack stepped off the platform and adjusted his uniform. He felt no gloating, no satisfaction in humiliation. Instead, he felt calm and focused. This was not about revenge. It was about proving capability and earning respect. Humans had been underestimated in the galaxy for too long, and Jack intended to show that even a small human could outmatch 5 of the most arrogant alien cadets when using strategy, speed, and intelligence. Lyra floated over, her silver skin shimmering under the arena lights. "You did it," she said, her voice full of amazement. "I knew humans were clever, but this is incredible." Jack smiled faintly. "It's not just cleverness, it's preparation, observation, and timing. They relied on strength and size, but those can be turned against them if you know how to move and think faster." Lyra nodded slowly. "I think you've changed how the Academy sees humans. They can't ignore you anymore." Jack didn't respond, his mind already racing ahead. He thought about the implications of this victory. The 5 bullies were not the only ones who underestimated humans. Bah. Many cadets, even instructors, had long believed humans were fragile, slow, and limited in ability. Today had proven that humans were adaptable, intelligent, and capable of outthinking even the strongest opponents. As the cadets exited the arena, whispers followed Jack. Some offered congratulations, while others simply stared, their expressions a mix of awe and disbelief. Jack walked calmly, his small frame moving effortlessly among the taller, bulkier cadets. He had no desire to boast. He simply knew that humans had shown their potential, and that respect was now earned through brains, speed, and strategy, not sheer muscle. Later that evening, Jack returned to his dormitory. The sun had set over the academy grounds, casting long shadows through the windows. He sat on the edge of his bed and reviewed the events in his mind. Every move, every reaction, every step he had taken had been deliberate. He had turned humiliation into preparation, observation into strategy, and human limitations into advantages. Lyra floated in once more, curious as ever. "Do you ever rest, Jack?" she asked with a small laugh.
Jack shook his head. "Not really."
Every challenge is a chance to learn, to improve, and to prove that humans aren't what everyone expects. We can do more than survive. We can dominate. Lyra's eyes sparkled with admiration. "You're teaching everyone something today, whether they realize it or not." Jack smiled faintly. "Sometimes teaching doesn't need words. Sometimes it's just about showing what you can do."
Over the next few days, Jack continued training, observing other cadets and refining his skills.
He didn't need to rely on anger or pride. His preparation and intelligence had already made the point clear. Humans were not weak, and underestimating them was a mistake. The 5 bullies never challenged him again in the cafeteria, and even in training exercises they approached him cautiously, their arrogance tempered by respect. They realized that physical strength alone was not enough to dominate a human who thought faster, moved smarter, and observed meticulously. Jack's reputation grew quietly, but steadily. Other cadets began to watch him, learning from his strategies, and even asking for guidance. He had turned a moment of humiliation into an opportunity to prove the value of human ingenuity, and as he prepared for the next challenge, Jack knew one thing for certain. The galaxy was full of strong, powerful beings, but humans had a weapon that could never be ignored: their mind, their speed, and their adaptability. The next encounter would come, but Jack would meet it with the same calm, calculated confidence that had carried him through the arena. Jack Rydell had shown the Academy what humans were capable of, and the lesson was clear. Never underestimate the human cadet. The days after the arena exercise were unlike anything Jack Rydell had ever experienced at the Intergalactic Cadet Academy. Cadets who had once ignored him now gave him cautious nods in the hallways. Even instructors, impressed by his performance, seemed to watch him with a mixture of respect and curiosity. The cafeteria, once a place of embarrassment, had become a quiet zone when he walked in, as if the entire room instinctively understood that humans were not to be trifled with. Jack himself remained calm. He did not seek attention or praise. He knew that his skills, speed, and intelligence were what truly mattered. The respect he earned came naturally, and he carried it lightly. His days were filled with training, observation, and preparation. Each interaction with other cadets became an opportunity to learn, to notice patterns, and to improve his techniques. The 5 bullies, Gornak, Varl, Zirek, Lomak, and Fryn, kept their distance. They no longer mocked him, no longer tried to intimidate him. Instead, their eyes followed him cautiously in the hallways, a silent acknowledgement of Jack's capabilities. Their pride had been bruised in the arena, and they had learned the hard way that brute strength alone was not enough to dominate a human cadet. Jack's reputation grew quickly. Cadets of other species began seeking him out, not to challenge him, but to learn from him. They wanted to observe his techniques, understand his strategies, and incorporate his adaptability into their own training. Lyra, his silver-skinned friend, was among the first to approach him with questions about movement, timing, and observation. "You make it look so easy," Lyra said one afternoon as they practiced in the training hall. "How do you stay so calm and precise, even when facing 5 opponents at once?" Jack shrugged, his expression thoughtful. "It's not about being strong. It's about watching, thinking, and predicting. If you understand your opponents and the environment, you can control the outcome without needing to overpower anyone." Lyra's eyes widened. "That's incredible. Humans really are different." Jack smiled faintly. "Different can be powerful. We've survived because we adapt. We don't always have the biggest claws or the strongest muscles, but we have brains, speed, and instincts. That can matter more than strength." Word of Jack's abilities reached the Academy's highest levels. The principal instructor, a large alien with crystalline skin, requested a private meeting. Jack entered the office, feeling a rare sense of anticipation. "Cadet Rydell," the instructor began, voice echoing in the chamber, "your performance in the arena was extraordinary. I have observed many cadets, but few demonstrate the combination of observation, speed, and strategic thinking that you have shown. You have earned recognition not just as a human, but as one of the Academy's top cadets." Jack bowed slightly. "Thank you, instructor. I am honored." The instructor's eyes softened, a rare expression for someone of their species. "Humans have long been underestimated in this galaxy. You have shown that they should not be. I hope your example inspires others to recognize the potential of all cadets, regardless of size or species." Jack left the office with a sense of quiet pride. The recognition was gratifying, but it was not the goal. His aim had always been simple: to prove that humans were not weak and to ensure that respect was earned through skill and intelligence. In the following weeks, the Academy's daily routine resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Cadets were more attentive, observing movements and strategies rather than relying solely on brute strength. The 5 bullies, once arrogant and overconfident, approached Jack cautiously. One day, Gornak spoke first, his voice low. "Jack," he said, "we underestimated you. Your moves, your speed. You're not just lucky, but you plan, you think." "Teach us." Jack studied him for a moment, noting the shift in attitude. It was rare for bullies to admit mistakes, but he saw an opportunity. "I can show you strategies," Jack said, "but you need to observe carefully and practice. Brute force alone won't get you far here." Over the next several training sessions, Jack worked with the 5 former bullies, showing them ways to anticipate movements, use environmental advantages, and refine timing. They were hesitant at first, struggling to follow his subtle techniques. But slowly, they began to understand. They realized that strength was only one part of a larger equation, and that intelligence, speed, and observation could level the playing field, or even tilt it completely. The other cadets began to notice the change. Jack had not only proven humans could survive and dominate with brains and agility, but he had also shifted the Academy's culture. Cadets no longer relied solely on intimidation or sheer muscle. Instead, they began to value strategy, observation, and adaptability. Jack's influence, though subtle, was transformative. Even during routine exercises, humans began to earn more attention and respect. Smaller species that had previously been overlooked now demonstrated clever techniques. Inspired by Jack's example, aliens who had once assumed superiority found themselves facing new challenges, forced to reconsider assumptions and tactics. Jack's own training continued at a rapid pace. He sought new ways to improve reflexes, study alien movement patterns, and anticipate multiple opponents at once. While others focused on physical drills, Jack focused on mental agility and situational awareness, pushing the boundaries of what humans could do in the academy. One afternoon, as he practiced in the simulation arena, Lyra floated beside him. "Jack, do you ever feel tired? You're always observing, always analyzing." Jack shook his head, landing lightly on a platform. Not tired. Focused. Every moment is an opportunity to learn. If I stop observing, I stop improving. Humans survive because we notice, adapt, and act faster than our enemies expect. Lyra nodded, admiration shining in her eyes. "You're teaching more than strategy. You're showing everyone that humans aren't weak, that we can compete in ways others can't even imagine." Jack smiled faintly. "It's not about showing off." "Oh, it's not about showing off. It's about proving potential. Humans have survived against impossible odds for centuries. We've adapted. We've survived, and now we can thrive anywhere, even in a galaxy full of beings stronger and bigger than us." The culmination of Jack's efforts came during the Academy's final group assessment for the term. Teams from all species faced off in a multi-zone simulation, combining low-gravity combat, strategy puzzles, and obstacle navigation. Jack's team was small, with a mix of humans and other species, while the opposing team consisted of the Academy's top alien cadets. From the start, Jack led with observation. He analyzed patterns, predicted movements, and guided his teammates. Where others relied on sheer force, Jack relied on timing, positioning, and quick thinking. His team moved efficiently, anticipating each obstacle and challenge. When the opposing team tried to corner Jack, he executed a series of maneuvers learned and refined over weeks of preparation. Using the environment, he redirected their momentum, anticipated their attacks, and guided his teammates to exploit gaps in their defense. Within minutes, the opposing team was effectively immobilized, and Jack's team emerged victorious. The Academy erupted in applause. Cadets cheered not only for the victory, but for the demonstration of strategy, teamwork, and intelligence. Jack stepped forward, acknowledging his teammates and the applause. He felt no arrogance, only calm satisfaction. This was the culmination of preparation, observation, and adaptability, the traits that defined humans in ways the galaxy had often overlooked. The principal instructor approached afterward, smiling. "Cadet Rydell, your leadership and insight have set a new standard for the Academy. You have proven that humans, despite physical limitations, are a force to be reckoned with. Your performance today will inspire cadets for years to come." Jack nodded respectfully. "Thank you, instructor. I hope it encourages everyone to value strategy, observation, and adaptability, not just strength." Back in the dormitory, Jack reflected on the journey. From being humiliated in the cafeteria to mastering the arena, he had proven something vital. Humans had potential far beyond what appearances suggested. Through observation, intelligence, and careful planning, a single human cadet could outmatch 5 of the most arrogant aliens in the Academy. The 5 bullies had become cautious but respectful allies, learning from Jack and adapting themselves. Other cadets, inspired by his example, now approached challenges with a combination of strategy and observation. And Jack, small but unstoppable in his mind and movements, had quietly changed the culture of the Academy. As he sat by the window, gazing at the Academy's sprawling grounds under the evening sky, Jack understood the lesson fully. Survival in the galaxy was not about size, strength, or intimidation. It was about adaptability, intelligence, and courage. Humans had endured and thrived through ingenuity, and now, even in a hall full of alien elites, that lesson had been proven again. Jack's journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, stronger opponents, and more tests of skill. But he knew this. With observation, strategy, and determination, humans could face anything. They could adapt, outthink, and emerge victorious, even against beings far larger, stronger, and more imposing. In the quiet of the night, Jack smiled faintly. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. Humans were not weak. Humans could be clever, fast, and unstoppable. And a single human cadet, small in size but immense in intelligence and courage, could change the way an entire academy, and perhaps one day the galaxy, looked at his species. Jack Riddell, the human cadet who had spilled his lunch and faced ridicule, had not only survived, he had proved the enduring strength and ingenuity of humanity. The galaxy would remember his name, and the lesson would echo in every corridor of the academy. Never underestimate a human.